Hello everybody. Today I'll explain to you how you can install Bacula and use it for backing up your deployment or whatever you want to do. So this explanation will be explicitly how you can do this directly on the virtual machine in OpenStack. But perhaps if we have some time, I'll also give you some examples how you can do this with Docker or with Kubernetes. Nevertheless, what you need to do is you need to first make sure that you have MySQL up and running, and then you can install the Bacula server and the client, and then we have to configure the storage file daemons and the Bacula director and point this to a specific directory that we want to back up and restore. So this is quite straightforward, and I will first show you what I'm doing here. This is um, screen of the initial virtual machine where this is going to be running. So this is in OpenStack, and as you can see, I have Ubuntu 18.04. So make sure you're running 16.04 and later, so we don't really want to use something older than that. Another thing is that you can run some later version of a kernel that's 4.16 or later, so just in case you don't experience some issues. I'm running 4.18 here because of some other work I have to do in this VM. Nevertheless, you can use the 4.16 or 17 or 18 generic kernel. If that's set, you will need to update Linux, and we proceed with installing the MySQL server. So just apt install MySQL server, and this will install the MySQL server. Yes. So after this is done, we need to use MySQL secure installation in order to set up a database and everything. So this will prompt for password and everything you need to kickstart. So to make things simple, I'm not gonna create anything about best practices for MySQL and this kind of stuff. So we'll just do the basic installation here for the matter of convenience. But if you need to run something like this in production, sure, you will be prompted to remove all the test databases and stuff that come installed directly with this. Okay, so what you need to do is just run MySQL secure installation, and this will prompt you that you can connect the MySQL with a blank password. So if you want to validate password plugin, let's say no. So we just put some password. Let's say Bacula. Re-enter password Bacula. So if you put the plugin to validate your password, it will tell you that this password is not good. So first it's short, and you need some special characters, etc., etc. So minimum password length and character variation. For our usage, we can just use Bacula. So what does it say? It says that there is an anonymous user which is used for the matter of testing. So if you want to remove these users, you can just remove them. I'll put no, they can remain, because I'm not gonna keep this installation running any longer. So after this, it will ask if you want to run in localhost, which is strictly yes, because you don't really want your database to be running on the public IP, especially when it's concerning something internal like this, like backup and storage. Everything should run in localhost. So disallow root login remotely, yes. So after that, there is a database named test, which you can access for testing. So if you want to remove this, let's say we just want to remove it because we don't need additional databases to clutter up the space. Reload the privileges tables will ensure that all changes are taking effect. So this is something that you can do, and it is done. So this tool is quite convenient. It's saving you a lot of time that you don't have to do after that. So when this is done, the only thing that remains is installing the Bacula server and the client. So apt install or apt get, whatever you want to use, Bacula server and also Bacula client. So this will install both. We'll just wait for it to finalize this. So during installation, you'll be asked to configure the postfix, and we'll just proceed with this. So this is like the PostgreSQL configure database for Bacula director with dbconfig command. Yes, so this will do it automatically. So we said that our database will run on localhost. You can set up the database to run on a remote host, but we're not doing this at the moment, so we're running in the same VM. If in case you're running this in a different VM and your backup agents are on a different VM, then you want to reconsider this. So I'm setting this everything on single VM, so you can just see how the installation goes. But if you want to experiment with different VMs, this is the step where you need to configure the stuff. So in my case, it's localhost. So for the Postgres, for the director, we'll set up the same password, Bacula, and confirm the same password, Bacula. You can use different password, of course. So it creates database Bacula, as you can see here. So it's populating the database with stuff that you need, blah blah blah, all these things, etc., etc. So what we need to do further on is to configure the stuff for Bacula, the directories, etc., because now Bacula is running. So if we go psaux grep Bacula, you can check that the Bacula file daemon, the storage daemon, and the director are running. So these should be restarted after each change in the configuration files. First, we need to configure the Bacula director. So we go to etc Bacula dir.conf, and here you need to find the place where the job for restore files is set up. So we just go down, so I'm not gonna scroll fast so you can see what's going on. So there should be a job where it says restore files. There it is. So we're looking for this. So here we need to set up the actual restore location. We'll set these directories further on, so don't forget to do that. You can do it before you start configuring these files. So I'll set it up, my backup restore, right? I'll save that and I'll quit for the time being. So what that's gonna happen is that you're gonna have a directory in your root. So I'll just create a directory called my backup, and backup, let's not forget to put here -p, and also in the same directory we need another subdirectory called restore. Okay, so in this case we need to change the ownership to user Bacula, and this is for the whole directory and the tree. And then also we just change the permissions. 700 my backup, and yeah, this is gonna be for the Bacula user, so the database can access the actual directory. The directory can be backed up in general, and the files written there for the restore. I mean, you can put this anywhere. It can be remote, it can be literally anywhere, so this is the same step you need to do. Now we can go back to the configuration and let's check Bacula. Bacula director.conf. So we go further on. We need to find the location that's called list of files to be backed up. List of files to be backed up. So I'll just scroll like this, but you can also use a question mark and check for this. And we need to add in the directory what's gonna be backed up, literally. So I don't know, for my presentation case I can use I don't know, root. You usually don't want to back up everything, but let's say home and Ubuntu, the home user directory. So all the files that are gonna be there, they're gonna be backed up. Now we need to also exclude the files that need to be backed up. So usually you're excluding the files that are backed up, so you don't back up the backup, literally. And here we add my backup directory. So the directory where you're backing up and restoring files, this is excluded. We can't do something recursively, otherwise it's gonna fill up the disk pretty quickly. So next thing is we just have to save this, and we need to configure the storage daemon. etc bacula sd.conf. So this is the configuration file for the storage daemon. In this case, if we want to set the archive device for backing up, we just have to change one of those blocks. So one of the devices that's having the job is this one, and this one you can comment one of these, so you don't really need a couple of jobs, but nonetheless it can stay active. Here we're just gonna put our newly created directory, my backup, and that's it. So we just need to save this, and we need to test the configuration files just in case there is some sort of error and we need to correct it. To do that, so we just use the commands bacula director -tc etc bacula dir.conf. So this is, if it doesn't return anything, it means it's fine. The next we need to test is bacula sd, the storage daemon, -tc etc bacula sd.conf. Great. So it means that everything's fine and we can restart all the services using systemctl restart bacula. Come on, bacula dir. No. Yeah. Come on. Don't hang up on me. The bacula director systemctl restart bacula sd and systemctl restart bacula file daemon. Right, so we are up and running. Now bacula is configured, and what you need to do is use Webmin to manage bacula. It's much easier that way rather than with command line. So to install Webmin, you need to add first the repository inserts, and these are put in the sources.list. So if we go to etc apt sources.list, just scroll up to the end and add 2 lines, something like this. So these are the repositories for Webmin, and make sure this is correct, otherwise it will return an error. So it's already added, obviously, and you need to update everything, including these repositories. It will ignore one of these because it's not gonna take from both at the same time. Next thing you need to do is to add the GPG key for authenticating to that repo. So you just add this one. I'll skip this because it's already added, and then use that key when it's downloaded with wget. So when you add the key, you have to click apt update once, just in case. So this is a standard procedure. And then you can install Webmin. Apt install wl Webmin. So this will prompt for installation, yes or not quite. So after it finishes, you need to enable port 10,000. I would suggest that you leave Webmin to listen on localhost, because avoid exposing ports on public IPs as much as possible. If you want to access anything that's listening on localhost, like dashboards and stuff like that, always use tunneled SSH ports. So in order to tunnel ports, I'll show you later, you can do the same with SSH-L, and then just translate the port that you need to tunnel through the secure shell. That's the best way you should do things like this. In order to expose the port, you can use UWF, allow 10,000. UFW firewall. So yeah, it's already added. It's just gonna skip adding the rule in my case if it's not added. So it will be, so this is if this port is blocked for some reason by the Linux kernel, it will be enabled to be accessible. By default, I think Webmin listens to the public IP, but in my case it's disabled by the firewall in OpenStack in the cloud, so I'll just skip that, so I don't need to access that from home here. So right, so this is remote. I'm not in the premises of the university, so I'm accessing this from a different city actually. So if I want to get to this Webmin, I need to use secure shell. In order to do that, let me show you. You can do something like this. I'll just switch to the other. So this is my PC actually. If you check, like it's behind net, and it's a private PC. So if I want to access the VM that's running on that public IP, I'll just use this command. So just type SSH-L and translate the port that's for Webmin and listening on localhost 10,000. So this will allow you to use localhost on your remote computer in order to access anything that's running on that VM. So in this case, it's this. So if I just do this, you need to use your credentials to access the VM. So secure shell and password and the public key. So that's it. If we just check that SSH, you will see that the tunnel is running in the background with the 10,000 port. In this case, I'll just go to, let me show that, localhost 10,000. Right, so Webmin listens on HTTPS. If you're trying through HTTP, it will show an error. So we just go there. It's a self-signed certificate, and make sure you're signing in with your root and your password that you have for your root directory on your VM. So after you get into Webmin, there's a couple of things you need to do in order to make the Bacula configuration running. So first thing is you need to install all the necessary plugins for Perl, because Bacula uses Perl modules. These are here, I think, in others and Perl modules. So if you go to suggested modules, it will be a list of modules here that's used for Bacula. So it can be 1 or 3 or 4, depends what you already have on your system. Whatever it is, for the sake of convenience, just install all of them, and it will make things easier to make work. Otherwise, you never know what can be an obstacle. So just install all of them anyway. Right. So I guess this should complete in some time. And right after that, we can we can just enter credentials for the database that's created in the first step, and then this will show up in Webmin. Right, so this is done. You can click refresh modules. It will reload whatever is installed, so it can take action afterwards. Okay, so we go back to system, Bacula backup system. It has fatal error, so it means that fatal authentication failed for user Bacula. So if we go here, you need to set up the actual database that you're using for this. So the user to log in is the user that you created before. So that can be, in our case, root, I think. So we just use root here. If there was a password of some sort, database MySQL here. There it is. So that's the actual access. So you can actually make your own database and secure the database with your own password. Name the database Bacula. You can use that in the MySQL tabs, but this is like the default settings, just working settings to get you started. As you can see, the Bacula director daemon is up, the storage daemon is up, the file daemon is up. So from here you can just configure the pools, the file sets, everything that you need to backup with this. So in this case, the full set of backup is as we described in the configuration file. So you can further on change this from here, and that's it, more or less. So from here you can configure your backup plans and make Bacula work in your advantage.